Hey everyone, welcome to a special bonus edition of the live stream. Dennis and I are here, just kind of talking some of the latest news, and yeah, that's basically it. We just got off a really excellent podcast episode with special guests Liron and Elena, and we were talking about AR, augmented reality, the different applications for that. It was awesome. But Dennis, we were discussing after show, like a lot of things happened. I feel like in the cellular news world, so we wanted to kind of do this bonus live stream, kind of hang out and talk about it.
Yeah, so let's hit it off with something juicy. The auction for C-Band spectrum has basically started to kind of come to a close, and we've found out that Verizon dropped a nice, cool $40 billion. Stetson,
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
what are your thoughts on that? Do you think Verizon's going to be in a tough spot now that they just dropped all that money?
I Okay, well, I don't think they're going to be in a tough spot because I think it's a really smart investment for them. They need this spectrum to build out their network and to really do something incredible. Will there be some consequences from this? Yes. I think one of the big things we're seeing is we won't see the dividends being paid out to investors, things like that. So, the company can cut costs and put that into building out the network. But overall, I think they're going to be fine. Verizon's a huge company, and did they expect to spend this much? Probably not. They're going to own the spectrum forever, though, so I think it's a great long-term investment.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a great long-term investment, and like Verizon does have a diverse asset portfolio similar to AT&T, but after this auction, all of the carriers they got a pretty steep debt amount. Like, and 5G, we're still at the very early phases here. It's going to require a lot of money here in the short term before any of these companies start seeing the return on their investment. And I'm just kind of questioning, where are they going to get this money from? Do you think Verizon's going to have to maybe get less aggressive with their pricing on their plans? Do you think that they're going to have to get into even more debt? Like, what do you see as Verizon's next move?
This is a great question, and I feel like there are two approaches here. One approach is to find ways to make more money. The second approach is to find ways to save money. I feel like if I were in Verizon's shoes, the thing I would do, gee whiz, I was looking at the mirror. Anyway, the thing I would do is find ways to cut costs and also find ways to make more money at the same time. If I was going to try and cut costs, I would probably reconsider some store locations, maybe consider closing those out. And I would also consider the plans and maybe what perks are included. Customer acquisition cost, that's huge. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like if I were Verizon, I wouldn't, like, if I just dropped my ad spend, would I be okay? I really don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but that's my gut instinct.
Well, I'm just thinking about cutting costs, right?
Yeah,
It's gonna be. I mean, you can definitely cut costs in other areas, but it's gonna be counterintuitive. Like, I'm just gonna use an example: the stores that you talked about, right?
sure.
Verizon spent a lot of money building those stores, training those representatives. That was a lot of investment that went into that. So if they close the store, yes, they save on the building of the rent, but now they got extra staff that they either need to move or lay off. And if you lay off, that was a waste in the investment in that person. You've also now just made it more difficult to acquire more customers or provide support to those customers. And inevitably, when you do end up getting back into the black, so to speak, you probably put that store there for a reason and are probably going to need to get that real estate again. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I hear you.
having that physical presence in its own way is almost like an ad spend anyway. Every time you go downtown New York and you see that big T-Mobile billboard right in the T-Mobile store, it's like its own free advertisement in a way, right?
You're definitely right about that. So I think Verizon will have to figure out how to manage it. I mean, the timeline, thankfully, is actually in their favor, where interest rates were low now, and the lifetime value of customers is actually really high with all these cell phone carriers. People typically stick with their provider for a very long period of time, sometimes 5 years, 10 years, 20 years in some instances.
My father
So
is 30.
yeah, so exactly. So I think they're making enough consistent revenue that I feel like they're willing to take on this debt. And I feel like the network infrastructure they're going to build out in 3 to 5 years will enable so many new opportunities for business relationships, for business customers, for building and deploying specific, maybe local networks to meet different customers' needs and things like that. So I don't know. I guess I would see potentially more strategic investments. Maybe they're more mindful about their ad spend and trying to really maximize on the return there. And maybe we do see prices go up, or we see a more premium plan emerge, like a $120 plan or something like that.
You think they might sell off some of their business segments, similar to how AT&T sold off Crunchyroll? And
Yeah, they might do that. What are other Verizon business segments that I'm not thinking of?
Well, I mean, there's their home internet provider, FiOS. I mean, if you think about it, one of the things that Verizon started doing was with the millimeter wave sites expanding into like specific markets, they started providing home internet using 5G. It kind of cannibalizes or eats into their FiOS business in an indirect way, right? So maybe Verizon gets out of the internet service provider game as like FiOS and sells that off to someone.
We have. Sorry, I pulled up Chaim Fried's comment, but let's get Madbird up here. No way they sell FiOS. I'm kind of with Madbird on this. I think Verizon's built FiOS. It's actually a pretty great service, and you know that I had it. So I think they will keep it. But I think Chaim brings up some great points that Verizon will actually probably leverage the TracFone acquisition here and continue to build out their customer base and also expand and deploy home internet solutions. So I think Verizon's strategy may be less about reducing costs and more about how can they earn more money with different services and bundle things together.
And I'll just say real quick, though, I mean, I know that FiOS is great. I've already told you actively on numerous occasions how I will switch. But one thing that's worth bearing in mind is that FiOS, kind of like Google Fiber, stopped expanding their footprint. Like, they've kind of just stagnated and kind of maintained, right? Like, we didn't see FiOS start offering 2 gigabit internet or 10 gigabit internet over their FiOS infrastructure. They're kind of just coasting on it, right?
Sure, yeah.
So, and they're not expanding it either, which means the amount of money they're making is the amount of money they're making. Like it's stable income, like the upfront cost is already there. But if someone, I'll just use an example. Let's just say Comcast. I don't know if the government would let this, but let's just say Comcast came out with their big fat coffers and was like, "Yo, Verizon, here's $180 billion to buy FiOS. Do you really think FiOS wouldn't think twice about that? I mean, Verizon wouldn't think twice about that."
I mean, you're right. They could potentially, really want that kind of acquisition. But I guess in my mind, who is the right person to acquire FiOS? To me,
I think the cable operators, because
you think like Spectrum or Xfinity, like one of those.
I think Xfinity, because FiOS is only really available in the Northeast Coast. That's all Comcast pretty much, and we already know that Comcast has been spending large amounts of money to upgrade their infrastructure. Getting fiber closer to the premise. For new multi-dwelling apartments, they've been doing fiber as installation. Comcast could save a lot of time and money maybe, but just by buying FiOS's infrastructure that's already deployed and integrating it into their system.
That's a really good point. If you it's almost like the Sprint T-Mobile merger, I feel like, where if you just take two pretty good companies, you integrate them together, you get one really awesome core infrastructure. So, I mean, maybe you're right. I personally don't see it happening, but
I don't see it happening as a likely thing. I'm just saying that, like, it's not as impossible as one might think.
Yeah. I got you.
But maybe, I mean, doesn't Verizon have a major holding stake in Hulu?
Oh, yeah. I think it's actually, I know they own Yahoo. So
well, they own Yahoo.
I
know
they
own Yahoo.
Going.
And they acquired, like, AOL and different things like that. Maybe they sell off, like, their shares in that. And I thought Verizon had a stake in Hulu. I know Disney does, and I thought Verizon did as well.
I wouldn't know without Googling it. So if you wanted to try and pull that up.
I'm going to.
Shame it's too expensive to deploy FiOS. It is expensive to run all that fiber. Yahoo, Madbird says Yahoo for the win. You know what? I can respect that, Madbird, but I respectfully disagree. I'm not a big Yahoo fan myself.
Man, Yahoo's so bad for me. I don't like their interface on their email system, and they're very insecure.
This is another good point. Verizon could use FiOS. I think this is in reference to expanding the backhaul and just the infrastructure they have. But Madbird says they could use FiOS to expand the millimeter wave and the fiber they have down.
Yeah, I mean, Verizon's interesting because, so I told you in my small town I had nothing. I cried a tear of joy when Verizon DSL came around.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Verizon, similar to AT&T, has openly announced that like any place that has DSL, like they're no longer supporting, like they're just cutting you off, and you have to rely on their cell phone network to like if you have like a landline phone with them. And then like I was saying with FiOS, I haven't been seeing like any active investment. So like to me, I'm seeing Verizon, at least in my market, kind of pull back from being like an internet service provider. And I haven't seen them expand in any territories. Like Comcast, for example, I have family that live out in like central Pennsylvania. And Comcast actually just recently did a huge expansion out into a small town called Lidditz, Pennsylvania. And before Comcast expanded, there was a provider called Blue Ridge Cable. And they were incredibly expensive. They made Comcast look like a saint, even though I complain about their data cap. They made Comcast look like a saint. But I haven't seen FiOS make any big moves like that. I mean, outside of the territories they've been in, it's been kind of it. I do agree, though, with what Madbird said, though, about leveraging that to expand their millimeter wave. But even still, it would probably just be cheaper just to have, again, a company like Comcast run the backhaul. Like, they already do that for, in fact, Comcast already does that for a lot of cell sites. Like, T-Mobile doesn't have fiber out here. They just lease it off of Comcast. And then, in turn, anybody else that uses that cell site, I believe, just shares it off of Comcast anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It could be better handled by another company, and could be used to expand. Chain brings up that they launched their own credit card recently, so I think Verizon's kind of trying to find ways to expand into different services and different industries that tie well into what they're offering, and can leverage the fact that they basically have everyone's account for auto pay billing purposes. Like you can easily tack on another subscription service or whatever to a Verizon customer's bill, and I feel like they're less likely to notice.
Question for you, Stetson. I don't think I've ever asked you this, but when it comes to credit cards, who do you actually use?
Oh, I have like 5 different credit cards. So I tried to, optimize for different. I have Fidelity. They're probably my number one because I get 2% back on everything. It's just like Fidelity rewards. Then I'm using Capital One, Saver One, and that's like groceries and entertainment. So I get, I think, 3% back on like restaurants and 2% back on groceries. And those are pretty much the 2 cards that I alternate between. I also have the Apple Card. Anytime I purchase an iPhone, boom, it's on that Apple Card. So I get the 3% back on that transaction.
You got the B&H one for the no taxes.
Yep, and I got the B&H one for no taxes when I order anything from B&H, which is actually huge. Like that saves me 8%. There's basically no card I have that comes close to that. And I got the Best Buy one, but only for my TV purchase. And I stopped using it since then.
It's funny because Best Buy was like my first legit card. I use it fairly regularly because I do buy from Best Buy enough.
Yeah.
But I hate it from like an app. Like they have no app.
There's no app. I hate the referral, or not the referral, but the rewards system too, because you get points, which are kind of arbitrary, and then you have to convert them to dollars, and then you're issued a reward certificate that actually expires if you don't use it in time. And so I really don't like that.
Well, if you spend enough and you become an elite member, your points don't expire. And it's like 3,500 that you have to spend on the card. I was going to say, before we answer this question, I was just going to say the main card that I use is actually Discover.
Okay.
They're my hands down favorite. And unlike you, Stetson, I don't do like the whole card maxing thing. I like the simplicity and the experience that Discover gives. But you had a person up.
Yeah.
Why don't we go ahead and hit them?
So this is 3 different divisions that Digital Tech Reviews and Tips is saying. We have Verizon Consumer, Verizon Business, and Verizon Media, all made up of different subsidiaries. And it looks like we have a chat message that's still being typed out at this very moment. But while we're waiting for that, we have another Jordan Gish, Discover's the best. So I actually got Discover Student when I was in school, but because I got that card, I only got rewards for my grades. So if I got good grades, I got like $20 a semester. And since then, the card basically turned into 1% back on everything, and it's not a very good deal. So I have I think I have Spotify on it, and that's it.
But it's not about the rewards, Stetson. I mean, it's the fact that Discover doesn't have like any fees really. Like when I traveled, Discover doesn't have like a 2% off the top like international transaction fee. Discover is got hands down the best customer service from a card company I've ever had. Like I literally lost my credit card in Korea. It was my own fault. I got so drunk and I lost it. I probably left it at a bar or something and just didn't grab it. Discover just issued me a new one, and like the 40 or 50 bucks that I didn't know about, they just refunded me. They didn't question it. They didn't make me spend on like any like fancy paperwork. Like they were just so cool. And they regularly give me credit like increases for being a customer and paying my bill on time. Like my limit with them is close to 7,000 on the card. And
Wow.
Stetson, I'm 24. Like that's insane.
That is insane. I mean, I actually have no idea. I have no perspective. So,
But
all right, we got actually the end of the comment. Verizon Delaware, Verizon Maryland, Verizon North, Verizon New England, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. Wow, so it sounds like Skyward, Visible, Exo Communications, Blue Jeans. So yeah, I think the bottom line here is Verizon has their toes dipped in so many different industries. I think they're going to be all right.
I didn't know. I had no idea. That is some good info. Thank you for that digital tech reviews and tips. Real quick, I want to just give a get Dbop or Hypersand.
Yeah,
I
here
don't
we
care.
go.
He asked us, how do we feel about DSS 5G? To him, it seems like a scam.
Yeah, so my take on this is I feel like it's smart but also stupid at the same time. And what I mean by that is, to me, it makes sense from Verizon's perspective, where they can upgrade the back-end technology to the 5G standards and the 5G network infrastructure while having spectrum sharing between 4G and 5G. And then when they're ready, they can transition everything over to a true 5G experience where all connections are over the 5G back-end. And why I feel like it's stupid is, from a consumer standpoint, DSS 5G is consistently slower than LTE, and so it's not even worth it. So,
Well, it
okay.
depends on the market, first off, because DSS implemented properly can provide better speeds. In fact, Sneed did a recent speed test with AT&T demonstrating that. Also, secondly, I actually think it's very smart overall, because you're doing the upgrades in place, you're setting the foundation, so that way you don't have to necessarily make a second site visit to go standalone 5G on the site. It's just a flip of a switch. Third is that
I like your second point.
Third is that even though, as far as real world use and speed test shows, DSS 5G still is a more efficient utilization of the limited spectrum than LTE is overall. The only reason why we're seeing the slowish speeds over DSS is because right now the carriers outside of T-Mobile don't have the spectrum to properly allocate, and as Sneed always says, skinny channels are skinny channels.
It's skinny, yeah. So I think that's the problem, is that the 5G allocation of the spectrum that's being shared is just so small because there's so few 5G users at this point that it's just not up to snuff. Maybe in like 1 or 2 years, as we see 5G devices and the number of connections increase, we'll see faster 5G speeds over DSS. As it stands right now, it's smart. It's not the technology I'm most excited about as a consumer. That's how I'll phrase it.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing to lose sleep over, but it's still better. I mean, let me put it to you this way. If you're seeing DSS 5G show up, at least you know that Verizon is doing something with the money they're making off you. You know that they upgraded your site recently. I still have seen cell sites from, say, AT&T that are stuck on HSPA Plus, and I'd be happy to see some 5G DSS, because I don't know, Stetson, if you ever used HSPA Plus, but it's basically glorified 3G. Latency is like 100 milliseconds plus. Speeds are probably less than 5 megabit per second. Not a great experience. So pick your poison, I suppose. But yeah, you have something else up right now from Chainfeed. I hate DSS in my area. It's an N5 5 megahertz channel.
Yeah, that was just like a skinny channel. That's all.
Yeah. Well, let's take a moment to move on to another quick topic. So, Stetson, you brought it up to me yesterday when we were getting ready for the show that Snapdragon came out with yet another SoC, the Snapdragon 870.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about that?
So basically, the Snapdragon 870. I'll throw the Verge article in the chat for anyone interested in checking it out. It's basically last year's 865 that has been, slightly improved and labeled the 870, and it's going to be like this year's sort of mid-tier, slightly more budget-focused processor. It's likely we're going to see this in smartphones under $800, and that's kind of where this sweet spot is, where the 888, that's where you're looking at 800 plus. So Galaxy S21, that actually started at 800, but then you have $1,000 for the S21 Plus, and you have $1,200 for the S21 Ultra. And I think going forward, the 865 will dominate that sort of flagship tier performance. 870, not a huge increase over the 865 or 865 plus. It's really like an 865 plus, so to speak. But it's the same design, right down to the Cairo 585 CPU and the Adreno 650 GPU cores. It's clocked at 3.2 gigahertz. So that's about a 10% clock speed improvement over the 865, which was 2.84 gigahertz, and 3% faster than the 865 plus. So it's like 3% faster. It's kind of a weird chip to have in the industry. I think Qualcomm is kind of recycling the 865 architecture for this year's kind of more budget phones.
So Stetson, just out of curiosity's sake, man, since you said it has like essentially the same design as the 865 that's in my S20, is it gonna have a separate modem like my 865, or will it be integrated like the new chipsets that have been released?
I wasn't sure, but it looks like Chaim is coming in here saying it's not integrated with the modem, so it's using kind of the older architecture.
Man, that's kind
bummer.
of a bummer.
Yeah. The 888 was really just... The 888 is so exciting in what Qualcomm is doing with that this 870 is kind of it's kind of a letdown. I think, phone manufacturers can say they have the new chip. They have this year's generation, this year's chip, but from a performance standpoint, I think you're looking at kind of the same battery drawback of having the modem separate from the processor and things like that. So
since we're talking about chips, by the way, did you pay attention at all to what Samsung's new CPUs are going to be looking like?
So they're on the Xenos 2100 is my understanding, but I know that Xenos has been known historically for having worse performance and worse battery life compared to Qualcomm Snapdragon chips that are available in the US. So do you know how the the 2100 is comparing with 888 right now?
Yeah, so like you said, Stetson, traditionally speaking, Exynos has had worse battery life and typically worse performance, although typically the worst performance lays in the GPU side of things, not necessarily CPU.
Sure.
But anywho, the new 2100 is really exciting. It's on the 5 nanometer process, and it has easily obtained parity performance with what Snapdragon's been doing. And based off of at least leaks, it appears that Samsung's SoC might actually even be doing better in certain regards as far as CPU performance is concerned.
That's great. I love that because that means we've got competition. Competition is good for the consumer. It means it'll help push things forward. So that's exciting for Samsung, and actually more exciting for everyone who lives internationally outside the States who typically gets that Xenos model phone. So
what I was actually going to touch on was, do you remember, I believe it was the S6 was the one phone where Samsung actually shipped their own Exynos processors inside. The question to you was, do you think we might finally start seeing Samsung diverge away from the reliance on Qualcomm as a manufacturer and kind of go into like a waterfall approach like Apple does, designing all their own hardware, because they already make the panels, they already make the storage, just using all their own hardware and then really optimizing their software to kind of get away from the reliance on third-party companies?
If I were Samsung, I would say that's the smarter move. My question for you, Dennis, and I don't know the answer to this, and I don't know if you would know either, but like, why would they not do that in the United States if they're already building their own processors? Like, why even have Qualcomm at this point anyway? Like, they're making their own chips. Why not just use them across the board, both U.S. and internationally?
I think it goes back to what I told you about with the patents that Qualcomm owns with the Spectrum licenses here in the U.S. market. I think it goes back to that. But that dynamic is changing. Now that like 3G networks and older networks are being shut down, there's really not that barrier in place to stop Samsung from doing it. That's why I was wondering now with the future of, how things are looking, do you think Samsung might go that route?
I think, yeah, if they can get away with it and it makes financial sense, I think they'll 100% do that. I think the opportunity to optimize their phones for their own processors is huge. Apple's been doing it for years now. It's really paid off for Apple. I see no reason why Samsung wouldn't consider something different. Do you know if the modem is similarly integrated into the processor with the 2100?
Oh, you would hit me with that question.
It's a good question. Do you know?
Yes. So from a very quick Google search that I'm doing right now as I talk,
Do you want me to cover for you, Dennis? I can talk about something else.
give me just 2 seconds. I'm a fast typer. Yes. This is based off of Anna and Tech. The answer is yes. They reintegrated their leading 5G modem in the processor. You would hit me with that. But on the topic of phone manufacturers, man.
Wait. Maybe this is similar, but this is another question. Do we know if Apple does this? Because what occurred to me is like Apple builds their own processors, but they're using Qualcomm's modem. So like the iPhone 12 is the what is it? The X55? Yeah, it is the X55 modem. So like what is going to happen with the iPhone 13? Like with the new chip, the modem's integrated into the Snapdragon 888. Apple's obviously not using the 888. So do you know how that works? Are they going to get a separate modem, or how that would pan out, so to speak? Can you get the X60 modem separately?
I would assume you would have to, because think about all the different applications that would require getting a modem separately, like cars, right?
Yeah.
That have like the built-in thing. I would assume that Qualcomm would probably just sell the modem separately and then let the respective company do as they please.
Yeah.
I mean, Qualcomm's not going to say no to $1, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
If there's a will, there's a way. But on the topic of phones, you kind of posted something interesting. LG may be exiting the smartphone industry.
Yeah, can you believe that? So we just had CES. LG comes up here, they're flexing their rollable phone. Hey, we're making a phone. It's confirmed coming sometime in 2021. Then, not a week later, LG might be exiting the smartphone industry. What? What could that mean? Why? I mean, it kind of makes sense. I feel like their sales are just down comparatively.
It makes perfect sense. Their market share here in the U.S. is like less than like 4% or something stupid small.
Are they big anywhere else? Because I feel like, in
Korea.
China we have like all the other phone manufacturers. Yeah.
They're big in South Korea, which is like their home market. LG was dead anyways. I mean, honestly, jokes aside, I mean, this is actually really depressing. Like as we get more and more concentrated in this saturated market of phones, I mean, I know the market's saturated as far as phones are concerned, but in the U.S. at least, it's fairly concentrated because we don't see a lot of international phones made from places like China or India make their ways here. So there's really only Samsung, LG, and Apple that make the phones. Even companies like Google, for the longest time, relied on third-party companies to make their hardware. So this is really bad, I believe, for the consumer, because LG oftentimes helped to provide really high-end phones at a much more affordable price point oftentimes. And they usually took some big risks, like with their like flippy phone and different things that they did.
I don't know. I mean, I can respect what LG was doing. I just feel like their phones weren't as good as the other ones, where I feel like maybe with Apple, the iPhone, that's a good overall package. I personally feel like Pixel, good overall package. Samsung, I would say, is potentially leading in some categories. Potentially camera, definitely display and screen quality, definitely with the bleeding edge features, reverse wireless charging, like when all those came out. And so I don't feel like, LG is really the best at anything. They're just kind of making phones that are, they're not, for me, not something I typically get excited about.
Question for you, Stetson. I know you've always been an Apple guy, but did you ever have any experience with either HTC or Sony phones?
My friend got the HTC One M8 in high school, and I really liked that.
That was one that had Beats built in with the dual
Yeah, the
speakers.
dual front-facing speaker grills. That was really nice, really cool to see that. I'm not sure. So no, the answer to your question is no. I haven't had any experience with their devices beyond that.
Dang. Well, I, as you know, am a person that always has multiple phones. I have had experience with some different things. Like, I still reminisce about BlackBerry and their keyboard. Like, my dad, when I was real younger, his company gave him like a company phone, and he had like I think it was only on Sprint, I believe, was the BlackBerry. And I remember just the feel of that keyboard was incredible, and it's something that got lost in time. Now, I know BlackBerry came back and tried to make revisions, but it was never the same.
Yeah.
And then like HTC, right? Their partnership with Beats with that dual front-facing speaker setup. I mean,
It was great.
they were one of the first, and it was an incredible media consumption experience. And then LG, I remember they made kind of like a not an augmented phone. What do you call it? The removable battery. Remember with the LG G?
Oh yeah, there was the G5 actually that had that. It was modular. Where
Yeah,
you could
modular. That's what I'm looking for.
slide it out. I actually vividly remember in high school, one of my friends, she was getting ready to purchase a new phone, or like her parents or whatever, like do one of those upgrades, get in one of those awful 2-year contracts that I'm so against. But yeah, it was kind of it was down to the Samsung. It was the Galaxy S6 at the time, or the G5. I thought the G5 was doing something cool, and I kind of liked the design better because he had that nice aluminum back, and it looked cool to me. But she ultimately got the Galaxy S6. I feel like just because Samsung is so much well known, they have that brand recognition. When you walk into a store, it's typically like them versus Apple. Like if you think of Apple, you think the main competitor of Samsung. And LG and HTC were kind of like off to the side. So
See, but the reason why I liked LG existing is because Samsung, like Apple, has their own ecosystem of things. Now, I'm ingrained in the Samsung ecosystem, hence reason I have an S20, right? I love Samsung Pay. They got me hooked on that one thing specifically. But Samsung's going away from like the whole card reader thing. Like, they're focusing on NFC like everybody else. And if we're talking about like open source Android space, LG did make really exciting phones. Like the V5, like you said, is something I thought was really cool. I would have loved to have seen a world where the accessory pool kind of expanded, similar to how Apple's trying to do something with MagSafe. Like that would have been so. Imagine this real quick, Stetson. Imagine you bought a modular phone, right? And you were able to like swap out the camera, so you could get different like lenses for your photography, similar to you can with like a professional DSLR. I'm not sure how that would look specifically, but just to picture that on a phone, right? Like that would be so sick for like content creators like yourself. Or imagine a phone where you could add on like actual like proper controllers for gaming that would work with things like PUBG Mobile, right? Now, I know ROG has done some things with like the touch bar sensors, but it's still not as good as like a legit controller, right? Like LG and these smaller companies are basically ones that always do the really cool stuff that, if it works, gets picked up by the major guys. But you need that underdog, right? Like the ones that are willing to take the risk on the investment. They're not just doing like a budget approach, Nordphone or something like OnePlus does. Like even Sony, for example, with their smartphones, I remember they incorporated heavily their PlayStation experience. Like you could game on your smartphone with like a Sony phone. It was kind of cool. So I don't know. I'm kind of sad. I'm sad to see LG go, even though I'm not someone that constantly invested my money in them. I'm just sad to see them go.
Yeah, it is a little sad. But I think what LG kind of showed with their 1-year version of the modular phone is they weren't committed to the long-term life cycle of that device. And I think it's been challenging for companies to keep up the modular phone concept because the tech is just innovating so quickly. I think the best one has actually been the Motorola with the Moto Z and the Moto mods. But other than that, I really feel like the modular phone concept just didn't execute as well because the mobile tech was innovating so quickly, your device became outdated, and people didn't want to create mods for a 1-year-old device. They wanted basically to create accessories for the new one.
Do you think, Stetson, now with this void being placed in the U.S. market, how do you think it's going to be filled? Do you think Samsung and Apple are just going to take the market share? Do you think maybe a Chinese company like Huawei might come in now that we have a more globalist focused president in place? Like, who do you think is going to fill that market? How do you see that going?
Honestly, it's probably going to be Samsung. They're pumping out so many different phones from their flagship lineup to their budget A series devices. I could really see Samsung finding something to fill that gap if they haven't filled it already, right? Like I feel like they've been just taking market share. So that's kind of my take. What do you think? Do you think there'll be a new manufacturer that kind of rises up?
My take is this: is that someone that would have bought an LG phone clearly had a reason not to get Samsung. So I don't see that customer just smoothly transitioning over to Samsung. Depending on what happens with like tariffs and like the trade war with China, I think it's very possible that a company like Huawei could feel that niche. Like if things get a little more lax and like the US gets off their anger pill with China, I think a company like Huawei could step in because they make they make very robust premium phones.
Well, was LG in the premium phone space though? I would almost view them as like a budget space. Like when I think of LG, I think of like the LG Cricket branded phones and things like that. So that's why I was thinking like Samsung with the A series.
Well, there's the low end, but I feel like the low end is also competitive again from like Chinese companies like ZTE.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Motorola.
ZTE and Motorola are probably the two other companies I would see potentially kind of sneaking in some additional market share there.
But yeah, I mean, I'm talking more about like the higher end. Like, I mean, you could argue LG wasn't premium, but they definitely had like premium specs for like a not so crazy price tag. And I feel like if anybody was going to do it, it'd probably be a Chinese company like.
I think you're right. Huawei, because I feel like they're also kind of competing against Apple with some of their laptop products. Like they look really nice, really great build quality. So, yeah, it's we just need them.
Peter B just mentioned something useful. Huawei is blacklisted, and we're actively rolling back tariffs, especially on the things that we still don't make in the U.S.
So I think that's the caveat with this. Is I think Huawei as a company is making cool products. I think us as a country is not ready. Like we're not ready for those products. Yeah, and I think Chaim is kind of resonating with me where he's saying the A71 and the S Galaxy. I think he's talking about the. Is there a Galaxy S Fan Edition?
Oh, yeah, the S20 had the fan. Yeah.
Okay, I got you. The FE. That's what I was. So. Yeah, that's kind of what I see. And I remember back in the day, I feel like when I was growing up, it was like the three big players that I paid attention to. You know, I was subscribed to Marquez Brownlee. It was like, we have the flagship iPhone, we have the flagship Samsung, we have the flagship, I think it was HTC actually. And it was like the one M8, the M10, those kinds of devices. And I feel like HTC just completely dropped off. And it's really just.
And when HTC dropped off, I remember LG being the third player.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess you're right, because that's when they kind of had the G5, the G6. Those kinds of devices. But yeah, I don't know. But
let's talk about the one that people are asking about with the 3 megabits per second.
Yeah.
So Ajit Pai, everybody loves him on the internet. In his final report for the FCC says that 3 megabits per second upload is still fast enough for U.S. homes. Stetson, your thoughts on that comment?
Well, yeah, so that's how fast, that's what the experience would be like at 3 megabits per second, everyone, because the lag would be insane. Flat out answer is no, that's not okay. I think a more respectable bare minimum would be 25 megabits per second, which is what is listed as the download speeds. And this is like rock bottom bare minimum. But for upload, yeah, 25. I think symmetrical 50 is what I would consider great.
Oh, well, Stetson, man, with your requirements, I guess I'm just a pleb with my 10 megabit per second upload.
Yep, absolutely. Actually, your connection has been solid, though. So maybe I'm mistaken. Dennis,
yeah.
What are your thoughts here? Am I off base? I like fast things, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy after our side conversations, but I do think you're wrong.
Okay.
I don't think 3 megabits per second upload is fast enough for a home. People.
So we agree with that. For home internet, 3 megabits per second is too slow.
No. I mean, yes, we agree with that. But 25 megabits per second download and 3 megabits per second upload is fine for one person. I.e., if you're living by yourself and you're just one person, I actually still think that's fine. I don't think you're going to encounter anything really that's going to prohibit you from doing most of the things that your average person is doing. The only person that would have a problem are content creators like ourselves.
Yep.
Right.
If you're uploading, I guess Yeah, because people, even if you're working online, like with Google Docs and stuff, you're not really using a whole lot of bandwidth. It's only with multiple devices all simultaneously connected.
Yeah, I mean, and with QoS and different things, you can stretch that limited bandwidth out. So, in short, people like ourselves would be like the people that have problems. But for the vast majority of people, they'll be fine, and that's actually still better than what other people are saying, like how they have DSL right now, 3x1. But the role of government and the FCC is supposed to be encouraging investment, and this is too low of a bar to be meeting.
Yeah, they're like, all right, we got it. Check. We don't need to do anything. It's like, all right, you guys got to up the ante.
Realistically speaking, I think the target goal for what should be categorized as broadband going forward should be 100 megabits per second on the download speed and 25 megabits per second for the upload speed. Okay. That should be the targeted goal for what should be considered broadband. Now, let me explain why I just said what I said. 100 megabits per second for download, and the reason why it should be that is because most families are probably between 3 and 4 people.
Okay.
With 100 megabits per second, and you had a household of 4, each person could theoretically have a 25 megabit per second download connection, which would be plenty sufficient to watch 4K Netflix, play games on it, do basically anything you want to do, right? And with that kind of bandwidth, you can easily support the amount of devices that most things estimate for a household to have by 2022 or something. The reason why I made upload 25 megabits per second is so that if things stay the way they are with remote learning, you can have multiple video camera streams like you're doing right now, Stetson, that are in full HD, 1080p. You can actually back up to the cloud and do cloud backups. Cloud gaming can actually be a thing. Like, I don't know if you own a PlayStation, Stetson, but one of the things that you can do with PlayStation is you can kind of like remote in from like anywhere, like off like a MacBook. That's going to be upload dependent, but if you have that 25 megabits per second, you shouldn't have a problem being able to utilize that functionality.
Yeah, so Dennis, I'm curious to hear your take on some of these comments in the chat. We've got 45 down and 5 up, and Amon thinks that should be considered broadband. I think consensus is it should be faster.
Yeah, I mean, 45 down. I mean, if we're going to make it an even number, let's make it 50 down. But
yeah, sure.
I mean, 50 down and 5 up, yeah, that would be better and fine. But you want, like, you could set that standard. And the reason why I didn't set that standard is because it's something that could easily be done without really needing to upgrade any real infrastructure for cable providers.
Oh,
right.
That's why.
And the goal that the FCC is supposed to be doing is they're supposed to be providing that pressure so that companies have to do it. Because if you do it 100 by 25, like I said, then companies like Comcast can't market their 100 megabit per second down and 5 up as broadband internet. Yeah, they can still, they can still sell it. But if they want to be considered broadband and keep making the marketing up being the fastest, highest speed provider, they're going to have to make serious investments in their upstream channels, which is something cable companies haven't done. Most cable company operators on their plants in the U.S. are still operating on DOCSIS 3.0 for their upstream and typically only have 4 upstream channels. If you look at anywhere else in the world, places like Canada, for example, where they're doing a different approach to their upgrades, you'll see that there's Canadian ISPs that use hybrid networks that are able to provide like gigabit down, 100 meg up. You go over to places elsewhere over in Europe, there's providers that are offering like 1.5 gigabit per second down and 500 megabits per second up over cable. It's possible with DOCSIS 3.1. It's just that the providers haven't focused on that form of upgrade. They focus solely on download speed since most residential consumers, they say, consume far more data. And even though the statistics say that only like 7% of maybe Comcast customers use their upload, it begs the question of why. Is it because they can't, or is it because that they're just not doing it? And I think it's more of a matter of the resources just aren't there.
Yeah, we have some other, interesting. Peter, shout out to Peter. Thank you so much for joining us. 130 or bust. I think that's pretty much on point with what you were saying, Dennis. 125. And we had another comment from Chain that 25 is the minimum to do Zoom meetings, cloud backups, etc. Yeah, I think the experience is just so much better when you have faster speeds, especially at 125 threshold, where you can chat with more people. Everything works more seamlessly. You can be on a Zoom meeting like I'm doing now and also pulling up, websites and articles, and other people can be using the network at the same time. So, yeah, I think I think we really held back just by slow speeds. And if people had more speeds, we could do more creative things. For me, the case in point is things like Google Stadia and other streaming applications and services where the compute power can be outsourced and you can stream the final video feed just to the devices at the homes. So,
And
yeah.
Kevin, and I just want to point out to what Kevin just said. He said he used to work as a field technician, and that I was right about cable operators only utilizing for upstream channels. And I'll just say, by the way, for anybody that's out there that's not sure, if you actually go into your modem, you can see on what connections you're getting locked to if you have a appropriate piece of equipment. It's an easy way to check what your area actually has provided, because I'm sure there's probably some one-off situation where I might be wrong, but.
Yeah.
But overall, it seems like I'm right on that front. But outside of raw bandwidth, something that also gets easily forgotten about is latency, right? A lot of things we do don't require that much bandwidth, right? But latency is more sensitive. And one of the things we should be talking about is the government's role in basically trying to enforce better peering agreements between internet service providers. Like, I don't know if you remember a few years back, but Comcast, remember they were charging Netflix a ton of money to get their traffic over their network, right?
Ridiculous.
I don't know if that's something that should be actually legal. I feel like the government should be stepping in and instituting a rule that says that all internet service providers have to allow all traffic to equally go over each other. And it should just be assumed that at these peer points that a certain specification for what kind of connection needs to happen there, whether it's multiple 10 gig interconnects or 100 gig or whatever it is. But I see you have Peter up, so I'll let you read what he said.
No, yeah, so symmetrical is roughly fiber to the home. They put fiber in the box and split out the streams for cable and internet. So
yeah,
I think fiber's the way to go, even though it's expensive.
Yeah, I mean, what he's talking about, I believe, is what's going to be required for DOCSIS 4.0. Basically, I don't know if you know this, Stetson, but one of the main initiatives, and you can find this a lot of times on like websites like Spectrum's website and stuff like that, is that they're focusing on a project that they call Fiber Deep. Cable Labs, actually, I watched a ton of videos from Cable Labs, but basically they're doing a project that's called Fiber Deep. And what this means is this. Over time, cable operators have consistently deployed fiber throughout their network. They started with fiber to the node, which, for anybody that doesn't know, a node, how do I explain this? A node is basically like a termination point that is where your home would get connected, and that is the thing that's providing the bandwidth to these different homes. But they went from fiber to the node to fiber to the tap to fiber to the premise, which would be like them running fiber to the outside of your home, or not outside of your home, but like fiber to the property itself. Then there's fiber to the home where you have like the ONT. And basically what I think we're going to see over time slowly is ISPs are just going to go that route. I still think coax is going to have its place because it's already there and it's cheaper and it's easier to work with. And, you know, I don't know of any home that has fiber ports baked in. Most people have coax already. Hybrid fiber. Yeah, it's that last mile. As James said, that's the important bit. And right now, it's cable being used, but ISPs are starting to fill in that last mile more and more with fiber. And I know that Comcast in my area has been removing amplifiers off the poles. I actively see their maintenance trucks with the little Xfinity thing on the side. I see the guy doing work. I know what to look for when I can see fiber versus just a normal coaxial amp, and I have been seeing them remove those in favor of fiber. In fact, I showed you before I dropped down my speeds, Comcast improved my speed to 1.2 gig down.
Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah.
So Dennis, earlier you had mentioned that your threshold for a mobile broadband requirement would be 100 down, 25 up. But you had also mentioned that the speeds you were getting were actually still usable, even though they were a little slower. So what do you feel like is the minimum slowest speed for upload?
Slowest speed for upload, I think, is 10.
You think 10?
I
literally,
at least for my needs, I couldn't get by with less. 5 is just not enough for what I do.
Yep.
But
I agree with that.
But again, the goal for me for the FCC is not to just do something that's easy. I want them to force investment to happen. Even if it was already happening, I want them to spur it on and make it a priority for these providers because they don't have competition. They just don't. Like, we talk about T-Mobile's home Wi-Fi, and home internet, and it's exciting and all, but and I guess it is usable competition, but it's still not going to be a replacement to a fixed broadband solution. Like fiber to the home is a gold standard. There's going to be things that come out that are going to require that regardless, and wireless technology is just inherently going to be less reliable than having a direct fiber to the home connection or even a good, properly maintained cable connection. But I kind of beat that topic like a dead horse, and I do apologize for my spiel.
I loved it, though. No, I think it was a great discussion, and I just really hope we see internet speeds improve in 2021. I hope that we see faster and better rollout of the home internet solutions from T-Mobile, from Verizon, from AT&T, so that customers can get access to high-speed internet and really do what they need to do. Because for me, it just makes my work faster. So while we're taking a break, I want to give a quick shout out to the Patreon show. We actually have a live stream this weekend for all Patreon supporters. We're going live on Sunday. So if you're interested in joining us for the Patreon exclusive live stream, there's a link in the video description. Consider supporting the show. We truly, truly appreciate it. There's some really fun perks. You get access to the behind the scenes of my T-Mobile review video, how that process worked. Or you're getting ad-free versions of the podcast. That's a new perk. So if you're interested in supporting us, I really appreciate it. Link to join the Patreon is below. And you also join the exclusive Discord where you can literally DM me directly, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, I think we should consider moving on to another topic.
Absolutely.
We actually just talked about AR, and something I quickly wanted to mention for subscribers is that in our previous podcast, we touched on Apple's first augmented reality headset. And it looks like they're going to be creating something similar in competition to Dennis's HTC Vive, where this is going to be like a full-blown VR headset. And then after Apple deploys this, they'll be able to make this headset for a niche audience. Maybe it's super expensive. Maybe it doesn't have a whole lot of functionality, but they'll learn and improve from that to then build and develop their own AR glasses. So I think that's what we're going to see. And this is from Bloomberg. From Mark Gurman. He's typically got some great stories on Apple and AR. But yeah, I'm excited. I think it could be a great product. And I don't know, great. Maybe that's not the right word, but I think it'll be an intriguing product and something to keep your eyes on.
Knowing Apple, I'll tell you the reason I'm not excited. Knowing Apple, they'll do something that's proprietary.
Yep. Oh, you're probably 100% right.
And that natively doesn't make me excited. I like universal standards. And what will probably happen is Apple will do something that's proprietary. It'll probably be really cool. Like, I remember when they first introduced the Lightning cable, right? It was leaps and bounds ahead of its time, right?
It's true, it was. But now USB-C.
Yes, now USB-C. And now we have this divergence in ecosystems and things that can be done, right? I would be much happier if Apple would just get on board for once with something and take all their awesome resources in R&D and work with the community to develop a great virtual reality, like augmented reality standard that can be used across the board. If Apple wants to make money, license it out. But don't be a freaking a-hole about it,
Yeah, keep it. But either way, I thought that was interesting. And then this is probably the big news of the day. This just dropped today, this news. I'm going to actually share my screen so you can watch along with me. We had a recent upload from my friend Ryan Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds here, give an announcement. Free data upgrades. Okay. January 28th, Mint Mobile's plans are bumping to 4 gigs for $15 a month, 10 gigs for $20 a month, and 15 gigs for $25 a month. That's insane. I think Mint will basically be one of the best deals on the T-Mobile network with that.
Yeah, that's definitely incredible. I'm constantly astounded with what Mint is able to do. Like, I am genuinely impressed with the company. I don't have them. I told you why I don't have them, but
I like the premium network access, the premium priority, the support, things like that.
But I genuinely support what they do. I love it. Like, their interaction with their customers, it's just all great. And to be clear here, guys, I'm not sponsored by Mint. I just really respect the company. I have nothing but respect.
It's awesome. So I'm delighted by this. I think Mint's done some huge improvements. They updated their app design. They added eSIM support recently, and that's slowly rolling out. And, with these data increases, I mean, it's just astonishing. I remember when I was signed up for Cricket, and $20 a month in a family plan was getting me 2.5 gigs. And here we are, $20 a month gets you 10 gigs. So insane. And we have some Jordan. He's saying he just switched to US Mobile. Jordan, like, US Mobile is still a great deal as well. It just depends on what your needs are. If you want to pay annually for service, or if you want to pay monthly for service, because with Mint you are paying an annual price up front, and that's something that it's not for everyone. So,
and I'll actually argue that US Mobile can be better. Like, if I couldn't have my T-Mobile plan that I have, I'd actually probably be on US Mobile because A, I like the month-to-month thing.
Yep.
But B, I like that they let me pay for like higher priority, which is really legit. And C, US Mobile has great, fantastic international plans.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest win for me, is just getting access to those international rates.
So, I mean, yeah, US Mobile, not bad at all. And I'll also just say, too, for anybody out there that has Visible, Visible also has its place. So don't feel bad that Mint did this. I'm sure, in fact, US Mobile will probably end up doing something to compete. In fact, didn't they do an update over the course of this year where they increased their own data plan?
Yeah, they did. They did two increases. So they did their new family plans and family discounts, and then they just updated their plans again. I meant to make a video on it, and it kind of slipped through the cracks, but I'll pull up the site here. They just updated their plan, so you get 3.5 gigs. So this actually used to be better than Mint because it was 3.5 gigs for $15. Taxes and fees would make that closer to $19.19. Actually, exactly $19.19 where I live. And then the 30 gig, $30 plan was insane. Really competed well with Mint Mobile's unlimited plan, which was $30 for 35 gigs. But yeah, Mint's new plan, super competitive, and it just shows you how good the bulk pricing model is for what they're doing and how well that's working. So I think that's super exciting.
So I just want to take a moment to pull up on the screen J101.
Oh, yeah.
He says, you do know that Mint has unlimited now. So yes, we are familiar with Mint's unlimited data plan. However, unlimited is a strong word. It's actually a 35 gigabit hard cap. And Stetson, since you've done some more personal reviews with Mint, why don't you explain what I mean by that?
Yeah, so basically what's happened with Mint Mobile's unlimited plan, let me see if I can pull this up, their official site, just so you can see what I'm talking about here. So if you go on Mint Mobile's site, you see 4 plan options, and they range in price. The one on the right is the unlimited plan. And it looks like, all right, $30 a month unlimited, awesome deal. If we click on view details, this is where we get the actual specifics. And Mint does they make it a little bit challenging, and I can understand why, but the key point that you need to know is data speeds are reduced after 35 gigs, but data is unlimited. What this specifically means is that after 35 gigs of usage, your data speed is throttled to 2G speeds. On Mint, I'm pretty sure that's 128 kilobits per second. For some carriers, it's slower. I remember I was just actually talking with Red Pocket today. Their 2G speeds are 40 kilobits per second, which is insanely slow. You can't do anything with that. And the reason, so that's this. It's basically a 35 gig plan. The reason Mint Mobile is calling this an unlimited plan is because for most people, for something like 90% of average consumers, 35 gigs is plenty of data, and it will effectively feel like an unlimited plan. And so what you're doing is you're reaching that target demographic that doesn't know how much data they need, but they don't want to think about it. They feel like they need an unlimited plan. So by branding this as an unlimited plan, Mint is able to meet the needs of those customers at one of the most affordable prices in the industry. So that's kind of what's going on there. But yeah, it's kind of a complicated thing. Dennis, how do you feel about it? Like, should MVNOs be allowed to label plans as unlimited? And also, Anthony Johnson, thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. I truly appreciate your support, and I'm putting this towards the service. The cell phone plans I'm signing up for, and I got some exciting reviews in the works, so thank you so much for contributing to that. I really appreciate it.
So Stats, just to reiterate, I'm sorry, your question for me was...
Yeah, so question for you, Dennis. Should MVNOs like Mint, and there's tons of MVNOs that are doing this. In fact, all of them, we can get into a broader discussion, but should they be allowed to label plans as unlimited that are actually higher tier plans, like a 35 gig plan.
Yeah, I mean, this all kind of actually started with the postpaid carriers. Like when T-Mobile first did their simple choice plans, right?
Yeah.
I remember them having like their 1 gig and then 2G speeds thereafter. So I mean, it's kind of like an industry problem. The problem is and the problem is that they're not technically wrong, right? It's still technically unlimited data. Now, is it unlimited uncapped speed? No, but it is technically unlimited. Technically. So
I'm actually, I disagree with that, because from a technical perspective, if you use your phone at 128 kilobits per second 24/7, I think I've done math, and I believe I got around, it's something like 90 gigs of total usage, total possible usage, if you use your phone at all times. So I would say it's actually not unlimited, because you physically just can't use that much. And it's not like, your limitation isn't in the web servers delivering you the content. It's actually in the speed of the plan itself.
I guess it's legality versus morally, right? Like legally speaking, it's fine. Morally speaking, I think it's misleading and unjust.
It's tricky. Yeah. And I think it's tricky because, again, it's like for most average consumers, they're not gonna notice the difference, and it's gonna be totally fine. It'll feel like unlimited. It's like not a big deal. But for some people, it's an issue.
And I feel like, in short, companies are only doing what consumers respond to. Like, if Mint just said it's a 35 gig plan, a lot of consumers would be like, I want unlimited, right?
Yeah, they wouldn't get it. Exactly.
Right.
Even though it's perfect for them.
So, I mean, in short, I don't really fault Mint for what they're doing, because at the end of the day, a company's going to do what a company has to do to make money. So, and Mint has gone on record to try to tell people to reduce their data before. So, I mean...
Yeah, actually, let me see if I can pull that up. We need to remove this from the stream because I'm going to jump in the email. But while we're here, Dennis, something I realized that I hadn't had this breakthrough before, but I was looking through my comparison chart, updating all the plans on my website, bestphoneplans.net, and I realized the only plans with true unlimited data are the postpaid plans from the major carriers or their direct prepaid offerings. So this is going to be the flanker brands like Visible, Metro by T-Mobile, and Cricket Wireless, and it's going to be the prepaid service itself, AT&T prepaid, Verizon prepaid, and T-Mobile prepaid. No other carriers actually have true unlimited access. All the MVNOs, I think the highest tier I've ever seen is 60 gigs on Straight Talk. So, yeah, basically anything that's from an MVNO, it's not true unlimited. There's always going to be a hard cap somewhere.
Yes, I did know that.
That was groundbreaking for me. I always thought there was some like true unlimited plan out there, but it's only postpaid.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, though, I don't get as angry about cell phone companies having to do what they do because there's limited spectrum and they have to manage. But if you want to talk about things that do make me mad, Comcast and their data cap, or just home ISPs in general.
Before you get all angry, let's get a little bit happy here. So I just got this email from Mint. My unlimited plan is up for renewal in a couple days here, so I'm working on my review. I'm going to have that out. But they sent me this email. Mint sent me this email. You don't need all-you-can-eat data. Okay. This fun little icon of a fox. It'd be nice if it was Ryan Reynolds, smacked in here. That'd be cool. But basically a nice little note. Your renewal date is coming up in just 5 days, so we want to make sure you're saving the most on your next plan. It turns out you don't need unlimited data. On average, you're using about 0.82 gigs per month. You can see it was a test line, not my main line. So switching to a Mint 12-month 3 gig plan will serve you just right, and you can always upgrade at any time. And so they're saying Mint Mobile is recommending I switch to a more affordable plan and saving an extra $300 per year. How insane is that? I think that is the absolute best. Like you would never see a carrier like Verizon be like, oh yeah, we know you're an unlimited customer and you can see your data usage printed in your bill that shows you're not using any of the data at all, but we still want you on the postpaid plans. So
yeah, Mint's cool about that. And there was one other provider I think that would like quite actively, like if you use less, they would just charge you less, and I can't think of the name.
The one I reviewed was Reach Mobile, which
they had
a really good system where it was literally if you signed up for a 10 gig tier and you only used 3 gigs, they would automatically bump you down to the 5 gig plan and bill you the 5 gig plan for that month. So yeah,
Hey,
that's Mint and Reach Mobile. Really, really nice. Really cool to see that.
Hey Stetson, so you had some kind of cool, fun questions, and you had brought up last night that you did a cool straw poll on Twitter.
Yeah.
Why don't we get on to that? Go ahead and tell the audience about it a little bit.
All right. So I almost want to pull it up. So let me, intermission as I pull up the tweet here. I wish I could load Twitter without any ads.
And,
all right. We got it.
Okay.
Oops. Add to stream. Here it is. Question for the day. Audience, I want you to answer live as I'm reading this out now. Do you think phones should be allowed to be labeled 5G if they only support low-band 5G? What's your take? Comment in the chat right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts. While we're waiting for those chat answers to come in, Dennis, what is your take on this question?
My take, since I'm always in the unpopular, is the answer is yes. Reason for that, which I kind of briefly told you about last night, is that technically speaking, low band 5G is still using the 5G technology, right? It's similar to how so back in the day, right, when we were making the transition from 3G to LTE, right? The first deployment of LTE isn't the LTE that we've experienced today, right? Like it didn't have things in place like 256 QAM. 4x4 MIMO did not exist, right? But these things were still labeled as LTE, right? Like an iPhone 6 sells at LTE the same way an iPhone 11 Pro sells at LTE, even though there's a significant difference in performance.
Yep,
right?
Absolutely.
And I think it's the same story here when it comes to 5G. At the end of the day, there's different standards that this phone is supporting that make it meet the 5G specification. And so I think it's fair game.
I can respect that. And I think what I was coming at with this question was that I was feeling as a consumer disappointed that it wasn't obvious, where you'd have a new phone come out touting 5G compatibility. They'd be so proud of it, they would put it in the name of the phone, right? And then the phone would only support sub 6 gigahertz 5G. And to me, it's not the same experience. I feel like you're missing out on what at the current moment is one of the best 5G experiences you can get, those insane speeds that the carriers are advertising. So I felt, and I don't know the best answer to this, but I feel like that I would want to see carriers specify what type of 5G, if not in the name of the phone, at least in a more prominent location, like sub 6 gigahertz or millimeter wave support.
But what does that like? But here's the thing, Stetson. Just because it's sub 6 gigahertz 5G doesn't mean it's going to be not be a better performance. Like for example, going back to skinny channels, if a carrier for some odd reason deployed millimeter wave in like a 20 megahertz channel, right? I'm just using a fictitious example here. The performance would probably be worse than, say, T-Mobile doing a nice 100 by 100 block of band 41, right?
Sure.
So it gets complicated with networking, right? Like I like Wi-Fi, for example, right? When Wi-Fi 5 first came out, there were certain things that the device had to meet, and then there was other things that end up getting added over time, right? Like 4x4 MIMO and different types of things that kind of improve the Wi-Fi experience and performance. Wi-Fi 6 is the same regard, right? Like you can look at boxes of routers that says Wi-Fi 6 supports up to 4,800 megabits per second, and then there's Wi-Fi 6 devices coming out now that support up to 6,000 megabits per second. How do you convey that difference to the
consumer? Yeah, it's just a confusing mess, is what it is. Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. And, someone on Twitter, Sacha Segan, basically reiterated what you were saying, Dennis, where a Cat 4 LTE device would be labeled LTE, and a Cat 19 device would be labeled LTE, but there's a 10 times difference in performance. And as a consumer, I had no idea. I honestly had no idea until I started really getting into this niche and learning more. And so let me see. I was saying, like, it was just disappointing to me that, S20, S20 Plus both labeled 5G, but for me there was a pretty big difference in that kind of performance. So, but yeah, I think you're right. To me, it seems justified at this point. They should be able to put a 5G branding on it. I do feel like I would love to see specifications more clearly outlined, because you can have a phone that's labeled 5G that supports international 5G, but it doesn't support domestic 5G. And I think it can be challenging for consumers to understand that difference.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, to be honest, the average consumer, if the average consumer doesn't know or care about it, then it probably doesn't matter to that end consumer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, me and you obviously care because we're running speed tests and we're doing like comparisons and stuff. But is your Facebook experience really going to matter if you're getting 10 meg or 100 meg? Like,
Yeah, it's not going to matter. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
plus two, one other fact I'll just mention real quick. We talked about this before, but plans can have a big impact too. Like, if you were someone that got on some really highly deprioritized plan, you could have the best phone in the world and still get bad experience just due to your QCI
That's
value.
also true. That's also true. So,
Dbop, thank you, Dbop, man. You're always siding with me. This is why you're one of my favorites. Just kidding. But
so yeah, no, I hear the audience, and I thought it was a good discussion. I was really interested to hear people's thoughts on it. I thought it was, really great to hear what people thought. And I think end of the day, 5G is a technology, and if carriers are utilizing the technology, following the standards, they're right to use it. I would just love to see more specifics, I think, more prominently displayed. But maybe that's just me because I'm in this niche and I like to know in the onset with having to go to GSM Arena and look up the specific bands that are supported.
Stetson, you had one more fun question kind of lined up. You want to go ahead and ask me that?
The fun questions. What do you think the new iPhones will be called?
Yeah.
13. We're on 13. So what are they going to do?
I mean, wait. Oh, you're right. Oh, okay. Now I get why you were asking me that question. I was like, why was he asking me this? I was hoping you would explain.
This is such a stupid. Come on, Stetson.
So
but
you're
Dennis,
thinking
this is 13. No one names anything 13.
Okay, so you're thinking they'll avoid 13 because it's unlucky in like the U.S. market because it's got that stigma. I mean, they could just do a Samsung and just go straight to like iPhone 20.
Yeah, I mean, it would be 21 because what Samsung's doing is they're following the year. And I thought about that, Dennis. But here's my problem. Apple's iPhone comes out in the fall. And so you would have the iPhone, let's say it's the iPhone 21, but it'd be the iPhone 21 for like 3 months, September, October, November, December. Shoot, that's 4 months. I can't count my months. But like that end of the quarter, and then all of a sudden it feels like it's last year's iPhone. Who wants to get the iPhone 21 in 2022, right? So I think with Samsung, because they released their devices literally in January of this year, it makes sense to call it an S21 device.
What if they did what they do with their iPad lineup and just call it iPhone Pro?
They could do that. Here's another interesting take. We have, where to go? Todd. It's called iPhone 12s, Stetson. I think Todd's actually, if I were Apple right now, I would probably go the S route on this model.
You don't think that might end up reducing sales though? Because typically speaking, if remembering back from like the 6 success moniker, typically the S series always sold less than the 6 because the 6 here was usually the one that had like the very fancier design and different.
I mean, I'm not sure if the name or the design is more impact in sales numbers or just the features of a given particular year because, we had 6, 6S, 7. Wait, we didn't have 7S. It just went straight to 8. But we had iPhone 10, then iPhone 10S. But then they also did iPhone 10R, and then 11, and then 12. I think what's confusing and why this actually may be mistaken, Todd, we could be wrong about this. It's because Apple went from iPhone 11 to iPhone 12, right? There was no 11S. And maybe this is because it was a design year change and they felt it was worth that generational leap. But the pattern kind of indicates to me that maybe it is like a whole new number this year and we get something new.
Well, I don't know if you saw in the chat, but Frank just said that they had iOS 13, so why not iPhone 13? Apple's done it before.
Frank, you bring up a great point. I don't know. To me, it just... the branding behind iPhone 13 is it's a teen. It's a little bit more of a mouthful. I feel like iPhone 12 is like right on that peak limit, and I feel like the 13 is harder to hype up. Unlucky number.
So, Stetson, we covered so much tonight. I'm really glad that we did this. Hopefully, you guys also enjoyed the extra content. But before we call it a show, I want to take this as a quick chance to go over some cool things that are coming up, specifically for Patreon members. So, guys, if you don't know, this Sunday, Stetson and I will be doing basically a nice little meetup with our Patreon supporters. So that will be your chance to basically get to actively ask us questions, and we'll constantly engage with you, and we'll have some more fun stuff. Also, we have some extra content that's exclusive to Patreon members on the Discord server, such as a behind the scenes video on how Stetson made one of his more recent T-Mobile videos. And there's also lots of other talk in the works. If you guys are enjoying the show and what we're presenting, we'd really appreciate if you could come check out the Patreon and come be a part of this most upcoming show and just supporting the channel. And to our current Patreon supporters, I want to just say how thankful and grateful I am to you guys. You guys have no idea how much it helps us to be able to do more extravagant things as we continue to expand upon the show and get into new topics and areas that I know that you guys want to see, such as coverage in places like Canada and stuff like that. Stetson, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Dennis, I think you did a fantastic job summing everything up. We'd love to have you as Patreon supporters, and you're getting some really cool perks such as the Discord channel, the monthly exclusive live streams where we literally just have a conversation. And yeah, thank you to all the current Patreon supporters. It really means a lot to me. It's really helping me afford these cell phone plans, allowing me to dive in, do the tests that you guys want to see, sign up for multiple cell phone plans at the same time so we can get AT&T versus AT&T prepaid, do that speed test comparison video, maybe even throw Cricket in there, maybe some other providers as well. So I really want to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters. Really hope you're enjoying the benefits that you're receiving. To anyone else, we'd love to have you on board as well. But yeah, I think either way, that's going to be it for this special bonus episode of the live stream. It was really fun hanging out with everyone and chatting about, internet speeds, what broadband internet really means, and of course, the next naming of the iPhone. But yeah, that's going to be it for this special live stream. Thank you all for coming, and we look forward to talking to the Patreons this Sunday.
Bye, guys.
Peace.